Welcome back to the Hooked with TMO Fishing Podcast, where we talk about all things fishing, recovery, and maybe even do a little bit of ranting. Thanks for tuning in. This episode, I'm joined by my good friend Chad Cummings out in southwestern Minnesota, Worthington. He is a radio guy. He owns 4 radio stations. He runs a nonprofit and is heavily involved in several other nonprofits, including one to benefit his local lakes. So today we're going to talk about a little bit of fishing stuff, recovery. We have very similar stories. He's also a recovering alcoholic, and he'll tell us all about his work in his nonprofits, and we'll talk a little bit of fishing towards the end. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you enjoy this one. All right, I'm joined today with Chad Cummings. Chad, you're in the Midwest. Tell folks where about in the Midwest you are.
Yeah, I'm actually, I live in Worthington, Minnesota, where I own and operate some radio stations, and my fishing world, which you and I connected with, really consists of a little bit of Southwest Minnesota fishing. I'm in the extreme southwest corner of Minnesota. So I'm 11 miles from Iowa and like 45 miles from South Dakota. So I'm way down in the corner. So for me to go to Lake of the Woods or to the Rainy River, it's like a 7.5-hour drive.
Ouch.
Clear across the state. So I'm not in what most Minnesotans would call the fishing, area of Minnesota. I'm down in the Prairie Pothole Lakes. So where my really action happens, which is mostly ice fishing, is in Okoboji, Iowa, which is a world-renowned fishery, 160 feet deep crystal blue lake that you can sight fish at 25 feet in the winter, and it's got incredible bluegills, and it's got crappies and muskies and bass and yellow bass and perch, and it's incredible. The bluegill fishing is world-renowned in Okoboji and has been for years.
Yeah, I've never been there, but it's certainly on the radar, and you can't really be as involved as we are in the ice fishing or fishing world without hearing it. When people go there and events there, and
some of the earliest ice fishing competitions and things, the trap attacks and stuff that Gens ran years ago, where the Ice Institute, the University of Ice, whatever, was down in Okoboji. Yep. And so that's where I first met Dave Gens, before I was, really involved in the industry. Dave and his buddies were coming down there to fish this unbelievable body of water because it had massive gills, and it educated people because it's so clear that, I get a kick out of it year after year. People come down, and I remember the crappie boom of Red Lake. And I don't know if you ever heard about that in the, early teens of 2000.
Mm-hmm.
They were Red Lake, Upper Red Lake, which now is, walleye melee, early ice and everything. For years, they had no walleye in there because whatever happened to the seining, and, I'll let people fight that fight, whatever they want to talk about. But the walleyes were gone, and crappies just went nuts, and they were 14, 15 inch, 16 inch crappies. And it was just crazy. So you go up there and you fish crappies, and I have buddies who own property on the north side. You go up there and you'd use a 1-inch like power bait minnow, on a spoon or something like that. You think you're going to catch a fish in Okoboji, Iowa, even if you're talking walleyes, you throw a 1-inch anything down there, good night, they're gone.
Yeah.
There's no crappie in the world I've ever seen bite a 1-inch anything. I'm using 2.5 millimeter Fiskas and biting half of my plastics off. So it's the most minute thing in the world.
Yeah.
And you can't have twist. You got to have your knot in the right place. You can't use too heavy a line. It just educates people, and I love it, and Dave loves it. And Dave comes down and fishes with me, and Jason Mitchell comes and fishes, and they film shows, and Okoboji is just kind of cool. So me and Chad Lorth, we thrive on the fun of Okoboji on a daily basis.
Yep. Nice. Before we get too far in, I'll just say real quick that, so Dave Gens used to come out here every year on his little road trip that he did. Good friend of mine, Mark Beauchesne, first met him at a show in Vermont that he would come and do with Jamie Vladica.
Yep.
And Mark said, can we get you to come over to New Hampshire? We'd like to get you to come over to New Hampshire on your, next year on your trip and do, maybe do a seminar. Maybe they had a television show at the time. Maybe we could get you on the show. And he says, his only question was, do you have 8-inch bluegills? So Mark had to make sure that he brought him to a place that had at least 8-inch bluegills. Yep. And that was how we got Dave to come over here. Before we get too far into the weeds here talking about fishing, because especially when I don't get to see, I tell people out here that a lot of my closest friends are actually in the Midwest. I probably have more close relationships out there than I do here, and I've lived here my whole life, just because of my association with the fishing industry. Not that I have anything against New Englanders, but talk a little bit about who you are, what you do for a living.
Sure.
Just to give kind of people, you've talked about where where you're located already.
So I'm one of the old guys, if you will, of the ice fishing industry, maybe in today's world. I'm going to be 48 here in a few weeks, and I've been doing this for quite a while. And in real life, I'm a radio guy. So I have a wife. I have 3 kids. I'm a very poor planner. And that's because I'm also an alcoholic and drug addict. And that means that life just flies by the seat of its pants because every day is different. I have 3 kids. My wife and I have been married for 25 years. We're just really poor planners, and I see squirrels quite often, just boom, boom, things happen. And so I have a 22-year-old daughter, a 19-year-old daughter, and a 10-year-old son. And that has provided me many things for many years of my life. My daughters grew up as boys, kind of, because I never had boys to spoil and take outdoors and hunting and fishing and things like that. So my daughters did all of that. And then it changed even a little bit more in my personal life. When my son was born, I talk for a living. I'm on the radio. I did a morning show for years, and now I own stations, and I'm a city councilman, and I sell air for a living. I talk all the time.
Yeah.
I have a 10-year-old, he's 10 now, Keegan is, he's a nonverbal autistic boy. Mm-hmm. So talk about throwing the curveball at life. Here I have this little boy who never spoke until he was almost 5 years old. And I talk for a living, and we don't have conversations. He says a million words now, but he never said any until he was 5. Now he says a million words, and he can recite entire PBS programs, including who all the founders, funders, and donators are at the end of PBS programs. Yeah. He can recite the entire thing, but we don't have conversations. Mm-hmm. So my outdoors life, I've never been able to enjoy that with my son so much, because he doesn't talk. I don't know when he's cold. I don't know, things like that. His threshold of pain is ginormous. So we just don't do that. You can ask him, hey, Keegan, how was your day at school? And he says, how was your day? He just repeats some of the words, but then he'll go and you'll hear him in his bedroom and he'll recite a 30-minute program verbatim. It's amazing. Wow. The world of autism. So I created a nonprofit along with my wife, and we help autistic families in a 60-mile radius by buying them iPads, crash pads, sling chairs, sensory items, and things like that. Mm-hmm. I have 4 radio stations because music is huge in my life. I've always been a music junkie since I was a little kid. Growing up, I was in musicals and all that stuff in high school. And I was a concert junkie, which probably aided and helped in my addiction problem because I was going to concerts at a very young age, and I literally couldn't tell people that most people want to punch me in the face because I've been to so many shows, seen so many live bands, met them, done that because of my love for music, that it led to my life being kind of crazy. I got my first minor in possession, minor consumption of drinking, Tim, when I was 13. Um, I was in a big sporting family. My dad and my entire family are huge. We have a huge wrestling family. And in the upper Midwest, that's a big thing. You know, if you ever follow wrestling, college wrestling,
Yep.
The Big Ten is the power mecca until you find some of the schools out east, you know, Lehighs and the Cornells and things like that that have incredible wrestling programs as well. But the Midwest, my family entrenched in wrestling. My dad's a Hall of Famer. My uncle is a Hall of Famer in Iowa. Uh, my cousin is a two-time national champion for Iowa State. I have multiple state champions in my family. I took fourth in the cadet nationals in Greco-Roman when I was younger. We just have a huge family in wrestling.
Yep.
So there was a lot of pressure. And my dad was my head coach. And my dad, like I said, Hall of Fame coach in the state of Minnesota. There's a lot of pressure to be what my cousins and my dad was a state champ and a college All-American and, you know, the coach and, you know, all that pressure. And I was really good growing up, especially in my early teens, and that pressure kind of got to me.
Yep.
And I didn't like it. I didn't deal with it very well. I'm a pretty depressed person. And I always kind of have been. It's just something I've battled with, and my world, you know, was always kind of dark. And so I went to a crutch, and that crutch first was alcohol. And I got my first arrest at the age of 13 in the middle of wrestling season. Not good when your dad's the head coach.
Yeah.
And it led me to a spiraled world of crap. I mean, I wrecked my life literally through a bunch of different things. And I've been sober for, I'm coming up on 28 years here. And day by day, I make it through and I work hard. And probably the biggest thing I can say is I modeled my life after a song. And it's weird because music being my life, I got my first job in radio 6 months sober at the very building I'm sitting in right now for $4.75 an hour, 6 months sober, working overnights from 11 o'clock at night till 6 o'clock in the morning. And now I own the place and I have 4 radio stations and have a few $1 million worth of debt. And the addiction and the song go hand in hand, because the song was by an artist named Stuart Davis, very eclectic Minnesota artist, and he wrote a song called "I'm Only Changing Drugs." And that's what I did in my life. And all I did was change the drug. I'm an addict. I just changed what I addicted myself to. And in all my talks with schools and people and organizations that have me speak now, I'm addicted to 3 things. I addict myself to family, my career, and giving. And that's what makes me feel good, because I'm a depressed person. So I need something that's going to keep me up and keep me going. Otherwise, I'm going to fall right back into it. Yes. So I changed my drug. And now I do fundraisers. In the fishing world, that's really where I've kind of focused my life. Is I fish events and fundraisers instead of doing tournaments and personal gain stuff anymore. That guy right there.
Yeah.
My first 30-inch walleye through the ice.
Nice.
And that's the only skin mount I have.
Yeah.
But it was the first one, and I accomplished something that people rarely get to do. Yeah. And since I've caught another over 30 inches in my life, but you know what? That really doesn't matter. I did something that I never thought I could do, is, attention to detail and focus and planning and doing all these things. And I got this monster fish that was like, oh my God. And, I addicted myself to walleye fishing for a few years, and I did really good at it. And so I do those things. But now, the drive for stuff like that isn't there. Now I want to help people out, and it makes me feel good. So through my career, I do fundraisers with radio promotions, concert venues where I give money away, ice fishing events where I get to help out organizations and groups, and introducing other people to things that maybe will make them feel better about life, because that's what I need.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, I can relate to changing your drug. You know, I remember you've probably heard this. It's kind of a, if you've been to meetings, you can't go to meetings, AA meetings, very long without hearing somebody say, if you chase recovery the way you chased your drinking, you'll do pretty well here.
Absolutely.
And that's basically what I did for a long time. You know, I was, that was kind of my drug, was, you know, going to 12-step meetings, going to AA meetings for a long time. And, you know, I would go to sometimes 2 a day. I've been to 3 a day. You know, I mean, some of that wasn't so much that I was like, this is awesome, I can't, you know, I'm going to do really good at this. I didn't want to be there, but I knew that the only time I ever stayed sober was when I wasn't there. I mean, when I wasn't there, I couldn't stay sober. So I went all the time, and eventually was able to taper off a little bit. But, you know, for me, fishing has been that way. Building, you know, I started a guide service 12 years ago. Building that business was an obsession. I chased it. You know, I ate, slept, and breathed it. And I probably, you know, still in a lot of ways do. But now, like you, I'm kind of getting to that point where you got to give it away to keep it, kind of rings in my head. And, you know, I'm not getting rich, but I benefit so greatly from the fishing industry that every day that I don't think about how to give something back, i.e. this podcast, I feel like I'm kind of cheating the system.
People are going to listen to this one. And I just, you know, I finished your first one where you told your story.
Mm-hmm.
Other than the fact that you're skinny, you're a little dude, you could close the video portion off in people's mind if they know what we look like and everything.
Yeah.
We are carbon copies.
Oh yeah, in so many ways. I mean,
but years.
You drove me, our age, the number of years we're sober. Yeah, it's when you drove me, you gave me a ride to my girlfriend's father's house. Was that the St. Paul show?
Yeah, I think it was either that a pro day or something.
Yeah, a pro day. That's right.
It might have been pro day.
Yeah, I remember getting out of the truck thinking, that guy's like me. Come on, take away the radio. And like you said, the size. Yeah.
It's a crazy world, you know, that and I find that, you know, there's a reason why I'm in the fishing industry. I'm not in it as a career. That's a little different. But I've been in it a long time, and I needed it. So, you know, if you want to go back into my fishing world, and as I got sober, I got started on the internet forums. So fishingminnesota.com and Hotspot Outdoors, and Rick McCann had those forums that were huge back in the, you know, late 90s, early 2000s. And I just got enthralled with them. You know, I'd come home from work, instead of going to a bar or something, I just totally, you know, I was on them all the time, and checking out what people were using and new equipment and techniques and locations and hows and what's, and I was on there so much that I got actually, you know, people, I'll preface with this. People love the fact that they think that teams, you know, companies, teams, whatever, hate each other.
Yeah.
And I love to laugh at that. Some of my best friends in the ice fishing industry use different products. Yeah. Sponsored by different companies. Yeah. And people think that, oh my gosh, they're against each other. You know what? No, not at all. I've used every product out there. At some point in my life, I got to the point where I had some products that were better for me than others. Companies that had a philosophy different than other companies for 1 minute or 1 day or a year that I liked, that I ingrained myself to. I had been a member of probably 20 different companies, pro staffs at different times. Yeah. And now I'm on like 5. Yeah. And that's by my choice, because there are certain companies and certain people that I've just felt more at home with. So that's who I've stuck with.
Yeah.
But I've been doing this for like 20 years, ingrained in the industry at shows and with companies. And it's the people that does it as much as the companies, but more so the people. So I have all kinds of friends who wear a different color or use a different type rod or use a different sonar or flasher.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? I'm totally fine with it.
Yeah.
There was a day me and Jason Mitchell were sitting on Devil's Lake together when I had pro staff for almost every opposite company that he was pro staffing for. And guess what? It didn't matter. It didn't matter to Jason Mitchell. He's my buddy.
Yeah.
It didn't matter to the fish. They didn't know what we were using.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't matter to any of my friends. And that was what I was like, this is what's cool about it. Eventually, yeah, we use a lot of the same things because I found that things change in the industry and products change. And now I'm kind of at home with, my alliances. I'm a Clam Pro, I'm a XLR Pro, I'm a Cold Snap Outdoor Pro. I use JT rods, and I use Filet Maker fish boards. And that's really who I tie myself to, and that's it. Because they're my friends, that's what I do, and I don't really care about the rest anymore. Fishing in AA and radio, all of it, wrestling, there's politics in everything, man. And if you don't think there isn't, open your eyes. I like you, I needed AA bad when I sobered up. I needed to find something to keep me away from wanting that next line or that next dropper or that next bottle. And so just like you, I mean, I bet you I did 120 meetings my first 90 days. I had to. I mean, I walked in off a bender. The day I got sober, I walked to a friend's house, knocked on the door, and didn't say a word. He opened the door. His wife and kids were there. Opened the door, said nothing. Come on in, man. Walked me upstairs to a room that he created in the attic. Said, here's a bed. You let me know if you need anything. 2.5 days later, I emerged from his attic, and he took me to a meeting. And we went to meetings non-stop, day meetings, night meetings, AA meetings, NA meetings for like 3.5 months. And it was what I needed. And then I found a pace, and I found meetings that I really enjoyed more and did that. And then eventually I quit going to meetings. And I quit going to meetings not because I didn't need them, because the meetings were causing me stress. Because there's some politics in AA, man. There's people who think that if you don't do sober their way, you're not doing it the right way. If you don't follow the big book or the 12 steps to a T and redo them every day, you're not doing it right. And I don't like it when people tell me I'm not doing my life right. I don't. And so then I started doing it my way, and my way's worked okay. Is it the best? No. Is it for Tim? No. Is it for Joe or Shelly? I don't know, but it works for me.
There are people listening to this right now that are probably, regular members of AA or another program that are probably like, what did he just say? And I've known a lot of people that have stopped going to meetings, and a lot of them drank. That's the big fear. Like, if you don't go to meetings, you're going to drink. And so I guess the only thing I can say to the people that are listening to that is, don't make not having to go to AA your goal. Like, don't set that as a goal, because that's usually when it ends up disastrous. The people that stop going to AA, they usually just stop. And some of those people drink, and a lot of those people go on and just live their lives. There are a lot of factors at play, but don't go to AA. When I first started going to AA, that was my plan. My plan was to go to AA long enough to figure out how to not need AA anymore. And
cool.
that usually would last about 3 months, and then I'd drink. And then when I took the end game out of it and just started going, I just can't stay sober on my own, and my life sucks. The way that I know how to do it isn't very good, so I'm going to try to learn all that stuff. But we do know, I do know a lot of people who, I sponsored a guy one time that literally the only thing wrong in his life was alcohol. As soon as he stopped drinking, everything changed. He was a nice guy. He was honest. He didn't do anything wrong. He just would hole up in a hotel, spend all his money on booze until he got to the point where his kids would have to come get him and take him to a detox or something to get sober because he was about to die. In every other regard, he was completely normal. So as soon as he stopped drinking, he started a business, did very, very well for himself, bought a house all by himself, like just started doing these regular life things and was like, yeah, I just don't drink anymore. And for me, I was just like, that's it's not how it goes. They would, when I started doing like doing like 90 meetings in 90 days, I was like 90, that's it. Like,
Yeah.
I'm on track to do about 3 times that many for a while.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's, I don't go to anywhere near as many meetings, and I have times where I'm like, I wish I was a little more active, but there were a lot of reasons that I kind of backed off on my meetings. Work is a big part of them. I find a lot of what always felt missing, through my work with people that I work with, and people like you that I've met in the industry, and opportunities to give back. Cause anybody that's been to AA has heard you got to give it away to keep it. And it doesn't just mean AA.
No.
you know
I use the word benevolence as my life guide.
yeah.
People think benevolence is money, and they're wrong. Benevolence is giving.
Mhm.
I give of myself in many ways, whether it's time, skills, energy, experience, and sometimes money. And that makes me feel good. So I have to do, I've just found that I have to be part of a benevolent life in order to feel right.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm depressed. I just pity party.
Yep.
I'm foul, just ugh. So I'm a city councilman.
Yep.
I have a nonprofit. I have all kinds of organizations I work with. I've created a bunch of fundraisers in our community, and I give money back to our lake association, to our fishing club. I go do the Hooked on Hardwater event every year, and this year, the first year I did it, and then they asked me to speak again this year at the banquet. Um, I ugly cry like a mother up on stage in front of people, and it's to me it's somewhat embarrassing, but man, that's how it makes me feel. I mean, that giving of my time,
Yeah.
a little bit of my dollars to drive 7 hours away to the Black Hills and fish this event.
Hmm.
Whoop-de-doo. I go on all kinds of fishing trips. I
Yeah.
fished all over, Canada and the US. And it costs money. It does.
Yeah.
But for me, I get to spend a day and a half with a kid who may never get that opportunity,
Yeah.
who lives, I mean, I, my young guy I was with this year, 15 years old, Tim, 5 or 6 brothers and sisters, I think he said, um, got COVID, got told by his parents, don't even think about coming home for 2 weeks. 15.
Jeez.
Lives a rough life, came
Yeah.
off of a reservation, um, living in Rapid City now and stuff. Could you imagine being 15 in today's world,
No.
and being told, dude, you got this virus, whatever, don't even think of coming back to this house by your parents?
Yeah. It's
I
tough.
would, whoa,
Yeah.
so here I am trying to have I'm trying to do all this fun stuff with my own son, and I can't because of, he lives with autism, and it overstimulates him, and he just can't handle it. And that sucks. I want to do that so bad, but here I get an opportunity to do it with another kid who needs someone in their life to just be this dude that they can hang out with for a little bit and learn some stuff and have some fun and see how equipment works and
Yeah.
do all this. And man, it made me bawl like a baby in front of 250 people at a banquet,
Yeah.
but man, it feels good.
Yeah.
Feels good.
Yeah. Yeah. There's, cliche, you can't put a price tag on that, but you really can't, you know,
No.
it's,
Nope.
it's just a hard thing to explain. Anybody that gives knows, you know,
Yep.
gives for giving. People give, to get, but anybody that gives just for the sake of giving knows exactly what you're talking about right now.
Yeah. We got a little 800-acre lake in Worthington, Minnesota, where I live, and it's not very deep. It's a prairie pothole, so most of the lake is like 6 feet deep. There's a couple dredge holes that they used to dredge back in the 70s and 80s, and they're maybe 10 feet deep at the most in a couple spots, not very big. And it holds walleyes and it grows walleyes really good, and it's fun. But it's not the best fishing lake or anything, but it's a prairie pothole, so it gets big blue-green algae blooms all the time, and it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
scummy.
Yep.
So we're trying to do everything we can to improve the water quality and improve the quality of life around it. So through the fishing club here in Southwest Minnesota Fishing Club, which I'm a board member of for the last 12 years, we do tournaments and we give money back and we buy docks, floating docks, so we can have tournaments and fun. And we help with water quality improvements on different projects and on the city. I'm on the Lake Improvement Association, and we do filter strips outside on the farm fields before it gets to the lake to curb runoff of silt and chemical and things like that. And man, the last 2 years we've had a great year. I got my pontoon that my family and I enjoy, and we cruise around the lake, and it's been clear for the last couple of years for the most part, and not a lot of big blooms, which we think, it's because of the efforts we're doing. So
Yeah.
a few years ago, I started this fundraiser with my company, with Radio Works, and I bring in an artist or two that are friends of mine, and we put on a concert on the lake shore on the 3rd of July.
Oh,
And
nice.
I pay for it all with the help of the nonprofit Lake Improvement Association. And we put it all on and spend, $10,000-$15,000 stage, sound, production, artists coming in, food, beer, pop, all this stuff. And then every dime we raise, I give it away. Every dime. I don't even reimburse ourselves. We just do it. That's our marketing piece. And we have this big concert. And heck, we didn't get to have it last year because of COVID, but the year before, I bet you we had 3,000-4,000 plus people sitting in lawn chairs listening to a 3-hour show and buying beer and sodas and food, hot dogs and burgers. And in 5 hours, we sold $30,000 worth of stuff.
Wow.
And then you take out what our costs were with it. We don't reimburse ourselves, but you look at that, and we put $20,000 last year we gave to the city to purchase kayaks and canoes and paddle boards and life jackets that people now get a rent and utilize the lake. Whether that, some of us were fortunate enough that we own boats and pontoons and stuff, but there's a lot of people who don't get to enjoy the lake with anything like that, but now they get to rent these things.
Cool.
And man, we saw all kinds of people. Worthington's a very diverse population with a large Hispanic population, Southeast Asian, African. We speak like over 50 languages in this town of 13,000 people in the middle of nowhere. And to see all these people get to enjoy this life
Yeah.
was something that we were able to provide by doing this concert one day and fireworks afterwards and paying for it and then giving every dime away. And
Wow.
it's so cool. It's
Yeah.
so cool.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about some of these. How do people find, some of these, like your nonprofit and,
Yeah. We serve autistic families, families living with autism in their lives, in a 60-mile radius of Worthington, Minnesota. I don't take a dime for our own family. I do okay. So I don't worry about that. But I know there's a lot of people who don't. It's expensive. Whether it's occupational therapy, speech therapy, physical therapy for some of these kids and young adults. finding respite care so parents can have a break because it's nonstop every day. Security and safety devices. Many people with autism get so frustrated because they can't get it out, their communication skills, that's a huge thing, that they hurt themselves. They pound their head on the floor or walls, they punch themselves, they bite themselves. So we buy sling chairs, sensory items, crash pads. So if they want to do that, you can take a crash pad, throw it under them, and so they don't pound their head on a hardwood floor or something like that. We buy them iPads, things like that people they just can't pay for. We do things like therapy with horses, just that sensory of being able to sit on a horse and ride it and get that feeling that and feel the hair and things. These young adults and kids can really just relax and release. And so we do that stuff, and we sell t-shirts, hoodies, and we take donations, and we give all the money away through grants. And people can apply personally. The only people that see them is the board of directors, and we decide on if they're worthy and what equipment they need, and we go buy it, and we discreetly give it to them. We don't make a public scene about it. We don't post about it, about the individual families. We just help them out, and we do that every year. And you can go to our website at keeganscause.org or keeganscause.com or keeganscause.net. I bought them all, and find out about that. And we named it after my son because that's how it came to be for us. And we're starting a new campaign with t-shirts that we're going to do seasonally, that will sell t-shirts, and all the profits go to giving back. And it's called the Super Happy shirt. And one of the little phrases my son uses all the time is, he saw it on some cartoon or program, and he runs around and he'll just repeat nonstop for like days, whatever, at a time. "You make my heart," and my son's got a little lisp, it's kind of cute. "You make my heart super happy." And so we did this series of t-shirts we're starting, and it's going to say Super Happy. So the first series says, "I'm super happy about autism awareness and acceptance." And that's it. And the P's in super and happy have a puzzle piece in them. And puzzle piece is a symbol of autism. And it signifies unique, because puzzle pieces are unique. They only fit in one spot on a whole puzzle. And autistic people, whether they're very high functioning or very low functioning, that's why they call it the spectrum. There's people all over it. People that function in today's world and run businesses that are autistic. People that don't speak, that are autistic. It's just an unknown that is all around us everywhere. And the only thing people had to relate to for a long time was, if you watched movies and stuff, you saw Rain Man. Many people would say that, Raymond would, he could count the toothpicks when they dropped. It's just superhuman, thing. Or you see these kids and people with autism that are just musical geniuses and things like that. That's not the case for everybody. But they have unique qualities and characteristics that they can do. My son doesn't have conversation with us, but he can recite a 30-minute program on PBS and then in his room say it verbatim. So we do just things to help there. Cool. So that's my nonprofit. And then, I'm involved with Hooked on Hard Water for the Rapid City Club for Boys. With our friend, mutual friend, Craig Euler. We got to get you there someday.
I know.
It's a super heartwarming, cool thing. And we raise money. And this year, Craig's dad used to run the Rapid City Club for Boys. And in Rapid City, you have a lot of reservation kids and stuff that just, it's a hard life, man. It's a tough life. And they just need a place to go. They need someone to be around, and Maggie and the crew and Chantel at the Club for Boys, they provide a place. They provide that escape from some of the everyday things that suck. and they get a place to go and do crafts and learn skills and play games and study and go to a library without being judged, without being scorned, without having to do adult things in life as a kid because your family makes you. It's a neat thing. So Rapid City Club for Boys is another thing I'm highly involved in. And then, my fishing clubs and things like that. Yeah, I MC the hospice banquet. I do, those things all make me feel good.
Nice. Let's talk a little bit of fishing here.
Yeah.
We'll kind of wind down on that. What's going on in your neck of the woods right now? I know here we're just getting, there are parts of my state that don't even have open water, but most of the state does. So we're getting into open water fishing, getting boats and kayaks back out there. What's going on for you?
We iced out on my lake, and I remember I'm on the southern border of Minnesota. We iced out, it was like the 18th or 19th of March, I think it was. We had big 40-mile-an-hour winds, and the ice got really bad, and it just chewed it up. And so it was gone then, but our walleye season is closed in Minnesota until Mother's Day weekend. That's when it opens up again. So right now, what we're doing is getting in prep territory. If you go up to the Rainy River right now, which is what a lot of people are getting crazy and doing, normally my journey sends me about the last 3 days of the season until April 15th or April 14th at 11:59 p.m. You can fish from Lake of the Woods all the way to International Falls on the Rainy River, and it's pure hog hunt trophy. I've never kept a fish in my life. I think you could. I don't know if you can anymore keep a fish, but if you want that chance to get big pig walleyes coming out of Lake of the Woods going to spawn in the Rainy River, this is the opportunity. I mean, you'll wait sometimes 2 hours at a landing just to get your boat in on the river because there's so few. But I go up there and a lot, and we have a lot of fun. I fish with Grand Root and his crew, and Rainy Days Guide Service, and they have a heck of a little program that they used to do before COVID, and a group of us would get together, and Jason Mitchell would come and join us, and we do seminars at night, give tips and tricks, and so that's about the only place right now that you can actively fish walleye. The crappie boom, is going right now. You get in the pencil reeds and stuff like that. You can have a blast. Get down to Okoboji where it's open now, and Lorith just sent me pictures the other day. Him and his wife got out and they found some crappies. So we're pitching docks and doing that before they really get on their beds and stuff like that. And I'm one of the guys that as much as I can, I avoid fishing the spawn to let them big old gills have their way. And it's kind of fun watching them bulls protect the nests and stuff like that. And in crystal waters, you can see that and do that. But that's really where we're at right now is some early season pan fishing in the open water. And I put my dock in last week, and I'm going to add another chunk to it because we're kind of droughting it. We just in the last week we've got 2 inches of rain, which is going to help. But we were about 2 feet down on the lake.
Wow.
And on a prairie pothole lake, that's a lot. I had to pry my pontoon off with a 2x6 off the lift last year to get it off the lake. And so we're getting some water back. So I'll start getting active again. But I'm not a big open water fisherman. I just I do too many concerts and events during the summer that we do in town here that I just don't open water fish a lot, mostly because of the territory that I'm in. It's not as active. Shallow warm water lakes just get murky and scummy, and the bite just goes away. So we do a few tournaments a year for our fishing club and walleye tournaments, and we do that. We do one in June, one in July, and one in September, and have fun with that. And we give all of our money away from the fishing club to the lake associations. We help with the walleye study on Lake Sarah, which has a very unique strain of walleyes in Minnesota that reproduce in these prairie pothole lakes that isn't very normal. Normally they're stocked, but they found this strain in Lake Sarah, just north of us, about 35 miles, and they do a study, and they're actually doing egg harvest today as we speak. So I got invited to come take part in that as they continue this study, and they use this strain of walleyes that is producing in these lakes to stock other lakes, hoping that it will in turn get back to a natural reproducing lake itself in big fashion, so they don't have to stock as much and they can use their efforts to stock other fish.
Yep. Yeah, we're in, we're not too far behind you. Our ice out was later, but a lot of our southern ponds and stuff, we're just starting to kind of warm things up. What are most people that are fishing for those like pre-spawn crappies doing out there? Here, it's more of a slip bobber game.
Yep. Cane poles in the reeds,
Yep.
just dropping.
Yep.
Just drop a little hair jig, or if you get little crappie minnows on a hook, and just drop it down in the pencil reeds.
Yep.
That's the most fun way. Cast and docks, get a little tube jig, or you can almost use your ice fishing stuff.
Yeah.
My buddies have a company that they started a number of years ago called Crystallized Jigs. And what I found in early season, because the water's mostly clear because you haven't hit a thermocline flip or anything like that,
Mm-hmm.
even in our lakes that are normally murky, excuse me, they're crystallized jigs. They use Swarovski crystals in the eyes.
Yeah.
And so they capture all this light, and I don't know what it is, but they're pretty darn good little jig, whatever. And we throw a tube or a little plastic on them, and we're using 3 and 4 millimeters still, and cast them out, and get right up to the pillars of a dock, whatever, under a dock, and just slowly drag it back with little pops, and we're getting crappies that way.
Yeah.
If you don't have reeds, that's another great way that we're seeing that action right now, and it's fun. One, it helps you get your casting down pretty good. Two, you learn how to gently pull your boat up to a dock to get your jig freed up because you're wrapped around a pole or something.
Yep.
And it's a lot of fun. And you don't need big equipment. You don't need anything fancy.
Yep.
And that's the kind of fishing I like.
Yeah. Yeah. Same here. I'm more known it for being a fall crappie fisherman out here, and I'll use 2 1/4, 2.5 inch plastics on a jig head, and we'll try to that doesn't translate very well in spring. And Matt Johnson, I think, just did a tip recently about not putting your ice fishing gear away, because
Correct.
Those tungsten jigs with a a mackie or even some maggots or a piece of worm or whatever on a below a slip bobber out here, it's big. That's the popular thing out here, is casting slip bobbers.
We'll do a little Johnson spoon or a pinhead, the smallest pinhead you can get. And if you cast it over top of the reeds, whatever, if you have weed growth or whatever, some cabbage down below, whatever, and you still got some life, cast it over the top of them, those little light jigs with just a plastic on it, a mackie on there. A Jamie works great. It's got the good flutter behind it. And just boom, pop, and pull that right over top of the reeds. Those little spoons, man, they become incredible. And you don't think of, I'm going to cast a spoon out here into the weeds. What?
Yeah.
You think that's odd, but you do that, and you get those little Johnsons and the pinhead minnow, and throw it over the top, and just light line, and just keep it right above, and just pull it across, and them big old crappies come up and just smack it, and it's fun.
Yeah, they're hungry. They're hungry this time of year.
Yeah,
they're getting ready to do the dance, and
that's right.
Spend a bunch of energy, so they're looking to bulk up. It's it's just like in the late ice. Same. It's that we're in that same period. We just don't have any ice. They're still feeding. For us,
think about the late ice bite. Think about that late ice bite for a crappie. We get in a certain situation where we're fishing like 5-6 inches of water is all above the reeds in the shallow water.
Yeah.
And you just give the pop, and boom, crappie pops right through the hole. That's awesome.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks so much, Chad, for being on. We talked about this a while ago. I did that friends and fishing kind of Zoom live event when COVID first hit, and I was going to do another one, and then been getting just lots of gentle prodding about, you should do a podcast. So you've been on the top of the list of some of the first people I knew I wanted to have on, especially if I was going to combine fishing and recovery in the two. I knew we'd have plenty to talk about. We could probably go on for another hour, but
I bet we could.
But we'll cut it off here. Thanks so much for joining. I hope everybody really appreciates this. I'll put links in the description and everything, so that people who are listening I'll throw links up on the screen, but people that are listening, not watching the video, can get those links in the podcast description. And yeah, go check out those websites. And Chad, thanks so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it. It's good to hear. Good to hear more of your story. I know. I was really happy to get the email from Matt that Pro Day is actually going to be in person this year. So
yeah,
if not before, you'll see me in August, I hope.
cool.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, man.
Thank you. All right. Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of Hooked with TMO Fishing Podcast. I really appreciate all the support. I hope you found it educational and informative. Before I go and sign off on this one, I want to touch on something that Chad and I talked about, and that was his decision to stop going to AA meetings. That's his decision. I respect that, and it's working out very, very well for him. He's found other methods to kind of treat his addictive behavior, but that is not a decision anyone should take lightly, and it's certainly not something that I suggest being a goal or an end game for anyone to set their sights on. We take this a day at a time. We make decisions based on our needs as they come, and everybody's decision is different. But for most people, I will say that the decision to stop going to AA ends disastrous. So keep that in mind. It's definitely not something that you should ever even look forward to. I didn't want it to sound like we were promoting that sort of thing. It's a personal decision that people make, and calculated risk, I guess you could say. Anyway, I hope you found this podcast educational, informative, entertaining. 1, 2, or all 3. Thank you for tuning in. Appreciate all the support. Hit that subscribe button if you're watching this on YouTube. It really helps the channel a lot. Can't thank you enough for that. And subscribe to the various listening channels, podcast channels. Thanks again. We'll see you on the next one.